Alright guys, what's going on? Welcome in. In this one, I wanted to focus in on a new report from Albert Breer here. And, before we really get into it, I completely understand that this quarterback, this topic, this discussion isn't for everybody, right? Everybody's entitled to their own opinion when it comes to the future quarterback of the New York Jets. God, I feel like we're asking that question every single offseason. But in this one, I wanted to focus in on Kyler Murray, right? We're going to talk about the Albert Breer report, why I also think he makes sense as a potential Jets option in 2026 as that bridge guy, as well as trying my best to maybe debunk some of the major pushbacks when it comes to K1, right? So basically, Albert Breer dove into the contract details. Of course, I will leave the full video link down below in the description box where he was giving out exact numbers. But to save time, basically what Breer was saying was it's looking like the Cardinals are going to be moving on from Kyler. Again, we all knew this, but there is a very real chance he is just flat out cut. He's flat out cut, right? The Cardinals have to make a decision by mid-March or else more guaranteed money comes onto the contract. So it's not like the Cardinals can sit around and wait until the summer to make this decision. It's not like they can wait until April to make their quarterback decision, right? Where they can sit at wherever they're going to be picking 5, 6, 7 and say, if a quarterback doesn't fall to us, we'll just stick with Murray for another season. No, they must come to a decision by mid-March. And again, according to Breer, just flat out cutting Murray is totally realistic. Now, he also threw out something that is probably going to be considered step one for the Arizona Cardinals, which is trying to find a trade partner for Kyler Murray. And he did, of course, give the disclaimer, basically suggesting that, okay, there is a chance that Kyler does come back with Arizona, but it would have to mean that like Arizona cleans house, they bring in a new head coach, and that new head coach is sold on Kyler Murray, and he kind of mends that bridge. It's looking like right now Gannon is going to be safe for 2026. And the Cardinals are probably going to be moving off of Kyler. But I was actually really interested in the trade information that Breer laid out. So he basically said that there is a world where Arizona would eat money. They would eat over $20 million and accept a mid-round pick for him. He said 1/3, right? So essentially what the new contract would look like for the team taking on Kyler Murray, it would be a 2-year, $40 million deal. Right, so $20 million per season. Arizona would eat $22 million in exchange for a third-round pick. Now, of course, the Jets don't have a third-round pick because of the Hassan Reddick trade. And if the math is right, the Jets should have 11 draft picks in this upcoming class. And so if we were to, let's just say, go down the Albert Breer hypothetical of a potential trade here, and we take on Kyler Murray at $20 million per season and the Cardinals eat 22 of it, that would essentially make Kyler Murray the 20th highest paid quarterback in football, and that's basing it off of this year's number, right? Where Kyler's included in that mix, and we're factoring in, right, Daniel Jones is a free agent. He's probably going to get more than $20 million per season. And so essentially you're looking at Kyler as the 21st highest paid quarterback in the National Football League on a 2-year deal. But I think the first part of Albert Breer's report was a lot more maybe enticing, which is if he's released. If you're telling me that the New York Jets can go out and get a top 20 quarterback in Kyler Murray for nothing, no draft picks involved, we don't have to trade any of these top picks, we don't have to trade any of these mid-round picks, no day 3 picks, we can get him as a free agent signing to go from Fields, Tyrod, and Brady Cook to a guy in Kyler Murray. I mean, that is a pretty significant jump as far as overall talent and production at the quarterback position is concerned. Now, if we look at the trend of the NFL, one thing that is just, it's on display, it's crystal clear, is kind of the quote-unquote reclamation project. The Baker Mayfields of the world, the Daniel Jones of the world, Sam Darnold, right? We're seeing what Sam Darnold's just doing amazing things. On one hand, it stings because he was a Jet, but on the other, like I'm happy for him from afar. He's won 11 games with a game to play this weekend, heading to the playoffs, by the way. And I think if you look at like the career arc of some of these guys, where they're a top end draft pick, they have a lot of expectations, they flash, they have good games, but the consistency isn't really there, or the mistakes don't really improve all that much with the original team, right? Baker and the Browns, Darnold and the Jets / Panthers, Daniel Jones and the New York Giants, although Jones did get the massive payday from New York, but I think everybody knew at the time that that was a mistake given the circumstances. The point is, if I had to take a guess on who that next player might be, I think it would be Kyler. You know, a year ago, if you would have suggested, hey, Daniel Jones is a potential starting option for a QB needy team, you were frankly laughed at. I mean, even the whole Mac Jones situation, right? We went from we're not even a full calendar year removed from Mac Jones being scoffed at as a potential starting option. Like, no, he's a guaranteed backup in all 32 spots. Guaranteed backup. Like, that was the perception around Mac Jones. Again, we're not even a full calendar year removed from that discussion, that topic. And the talking point right now is a team willing to give up a second round pick or a third round pick for Mac Jones? Would the 49ers even trade Mac if they had a offer, with a third on the table? Things can change within a year. The stocks of these players can go from high to low, low to high, right? It's this ever changing thing. I mean, even like Malik Willis, if we really want to, continue to throw out names, he looked unplayable with the Tennessee Titans when Vrabel was the head coach. Unplayable. But looking at Malik now, right, working with Matt LaFleur, Green Bay, sitting behind Jordan Love, he looks like a completely different quarterback. And so I wanted to bring up specific stats here, right? Actual, tangible facts on who Kyler Murray has been since he was drafted back in 2019, first overall by, of course, the Arizona Cardinals. So a total of 87 games played. In those 87 games, Kyler Murray has thrown for 121 touchdowns to 60 picks, basically a 2-to-1 touchdown INT ratio. His completion percentage over his career is just over 67%. That is a really solid mark. That's considered above average. I mean, that's an above average number. That's like top 12 in football right now. Over his career, those are the passing statistics. And I think something else that's very, very important to bring up when talking about players' career averages is looking at each individual season. When it comes to Kyler Murray here, he hasn't had that dominant season where he's just taken the league by storm. He's throwing for 45 touchdowns, which in turn skews the overall 7-year career average, right? Where the numbers might look a little bit better. And conversely, he hasn't had that flat out terrible season, right? 17 touchdowns to 18 picks or something, or that one season where he completed 59% of his passes. Everything is pretty much spot on from a year to year basis. The only, real varying number is the amount of games that he's played. Now, early on in his career, he had no injuries, right? In his first 3 seasons, he missed 3 combined games. 2022, 11 games. 2023, 8 games. Not that great. 2024 comes back fully healthy, full 17-game season. And then this past season, 2025, he only played in 5 games. And, I think that number looks a little bit lower because, as we all know, the Cardinals have this decision to make. Do they really want to risk putting Kyler Murray back out onto the field, dealing with a foot injury this season, and him getting hurt again to where he's potentially injured during the offseason and they can't move him, and now they're stuck with the contract situation. So I think from a top to bottom standpoint, I like how we know at this point who Kyler is based off of the numbers alone. Now, here's what's really, really cool. That's just passing numbers. So we know he's efficient. We know he puts the ball in play. We know if he's out there playing, he's probably going to give you at least 20 passing touchdowns, and he's not going to be turning the ball over at some sort of crazy alarming rate, 2-to-1 TD to INT ratio. But as a runner, he's giving you a lot of production as well. Over those 87 games, he's rushed for over 3,000 yards, right? 32 rushing touchdowns. On average, over a 17-game season, based off of the numbers so far, he averages out to just over 600 rushing yards per season with 6 touchdowns. Like, that is a good amount of extra volume, extra production that you could just lump on top of the the overall passing numbers. And also, too, for what it's worth, Kyler was the number 1 overall pick. It's not like the Cards were 8-8 and they decided to trade up for him. No, number 1 pick, worst team in football. Of course, that team was led, ironically enough, by Steve Wilkes the season prior, but it's not like Kyler has been on this fantastic, stars all over the place, Bengals situation. It's not like He's on to head coach number 2 here, and there's questions about Gannon's future and Petzing's future and whatnot. He hasn't been in the perfect situation. So you're looking at all these numbers. Of course, we do have to be objective here, and if we're going to talk about rushing positives, we also have to talk about rushing negatives, the fumbles. This is an area that I just don't like about Kyler Murray's game. You kind of have to take it with the good. So we can definitely ding Kyler for that. Although you can maybe push back and say if he lands with the New York Jets this offseason, he would have the best offensive line that he's ever played with. That would, in theory, help out the fumbles, at least with him getting, hit from behind or strip sacks, stuff like that. Because it's not like every single fumble comes on him running upfield. Some of these fumbles come on sacks. And so again, at 28 years old, if the Cardinals cut Kyler Murray, understanding how big of a hole that the Jets are at right now at quarterback, if Kyler Murray is just out there as a free agent and we don't have to give up a draft pick, understanding the numbers, understanding the efficiency, understanding the touchdowns to picks, understanding the rushing production as well, I mean, that to me, just alone, eye test aside, is such a big boost to what we've currently been dealing with, this season. Let's read off a couple of free agent quarterback names, right? The veterans that are going to be out there that are realistic, right? I don't want to throw in like Daniel Jones necessarily or Aaron Rodgers, right? But we got Russell Wilson, Marcus Mariota, Malik Willis, Joe Flacco, Kenny Pickett, Gardner Minshew coming off the ACL, and Jimmy Garoppolo. If we take a look at that crop of quarterbacks from just a pure talent perspective, and also factoring in age and where they're at in their career, I think it's pretty obvious that Kyler Murray is the massive outlier there. He's the only quarterback out of that group, and I do like Mariota. I have been impressed with Mariota's pass game this season. There's not like this major discrepancy between when Jaden Daniels is out there and Marcus Mariota is out there. I find that interesting. And I think even with Malik Willis, we talked about him, I think a couple weeks ago, right? I think the ceiling is there. I like how he looks like a more polished quarterback. He's not afraid to just check it down if nothing is there down the field. There are some interesting names on this list, but again, from just a pure talent perspective, if you roll out Kyler Murray, you have a chance to win that game. If you roll out Russ, I don't know if you have the same chance to win. If you roll out Gardner Minshew or Kenny Pickett or Jimmy G at 35, I don't know if these guys give you the same chance, the same upside to win these football games. And so let's talk about some of the arguments or some of the pushback against Kyler Murray. Okay, the biggest one that I've seen is that he's not a winner, right? And like we hear the cliche all the time, football's a team sport, so it's very difficult to say one player's a winner and one player's a loser. If you take Jalen Hurts, who is a bona fide quote-unquote winner, if you put Jalen Hurts on the Titans this season, if you put Jalen Hurts and you stick him on the Raiders roster, would he be considered a winner? If we take a look at Kyler's career record, he has 38 wins to 48 losses with 1 tie. But I feel like it's necessary to bring up other quarterbacks that were maybe in a similar situation or someone that might have similar numbers but is considered a winner, despite the actual track record here. So let's talk about former Oklahoma quarterback Baker Mayfield. If we lump in all the success with Tampa Bay, his career record is 57-62. I think a lot of people would say, yeah, Baker's a winning type of player. He makes winning plays. He there's moments where the team is winning because of Baker. You never really feel like the team is winning in spite of him. Like there's moments where he puts the team on his back. He has monster performances. Is he a top 5 guy in football at this point? I would say no. Does he have a lot of help? Yes, but I don't look at Baker and say to myself, that guy's a career loser. But his record career-wise is under 500. And I'm lumping in the success with Tampa into that career record. Sam Darnold, right? Do we look at Sam Darnold as a loser? I mean, he had a 13-25 record with the Jets. He was 8-9 with the Carolina Panthers, 0-1 with the 49ers. It wasn't really until Minnesota where he's in a much better situation and he's grown up a little bit, and he went out and got developed by Kyle Shanahan and whatnot the season prior, got with a good offensive coach here in O'Connell, and now you started to see the wins. Right? I think it's safe to assume that the Jets didn't have much talent. The Panthers didn't have much talent. The 49ers did have talent, but it was one game. Who cares? But again, Darnold was a quote unquote career loser up until his season where he initially signed on to be the backup in Minnesota. And there was a push to just start JJ McCarthy out of the gate. But as we all remember, he did get hurt in preseason, which kind of forced the Vikings to go with Sam. And I have seen a lot of Vikings fans that basically said, I really wish we would have kept him based off of what Darnold's doing this season and how seamless everything looked last year, despite the playoff game. We can even talk about maybe some older veteran guys like Matt Stafford. Stafford was not considered a winner back in Detroit. He had 74 wins and 90 losses over 12 seasons with the Lions. So again, another under 500 situation. And out of those 12 seasons, only 4 winning seasons. Again, 12 years. That's a long time, man. 12 years. Out of that 12 years, 4 winning seasons. Is it because Stafford is this losing type of player? No, obviously not. He's kind of wiped away that notion with his time with the Rams. And I think it's pretty clear that the Lions had a lot of coaching issues during his time there. They had a lot of talent issues, especially early on in his career. Again, another number 1 overall pick here, where he's getting drafted to a situation where it's not really the best, like you're being asked to do a lot, right? Again, Darnold, 3rd overall pick. Baker, number 1 overall pick. Kyler, number 1 overall pick. Let's talk about Daniel Jones. Daniel Jones is someone who had a horrible career record with the Giants. 24 wins, 44 losses, 1 tie. We can look at Kirk Cousins in his first stop, which was Washington. 26 wins, 30 losses, and 1 tie. I think if we all look at the production in Minnesota, if we had that production with the Jets, quarterback play wouldn't really be considered an issue right now for this team. So I think the whole argument right now with Kyler just being like just a loser player, losing mentality, can't win in a team sport, when we have a lot of different examples that we can look off of guys that have performed, lots of games, lots of a big sample size, and they're under 500. And I try to pick quarterbacks in different that play different styles. Like Stafford is a lot different than Darnold. Trying to pick some older guys and again, Cousins and whatnot compared to some younger guys like Darnold and Baker. I mean, even this season too, like Kyler played in 5 games this season, went 2-3. Okay, nothing to write home about, but Jacoby Brissett went 1-10. Has it been the perfect situation? No, but I personally feel weird saying, oh, Kyler is a loser and he's only going to lose from here on out. Again, based off of history, it's literally been done tons of times. Now, the other big pushback is that Kyler's not a leader, right? He's not this player to come in and galvanize a locker room. He doesn't have that, maybe Tom Brady work ethic. He plays video games on his time off. He's not really considered this, Peyton Manning level of dedication, right? He's just not a good leader. And I wanted to actually tell a story that Cam Newton told over on his podcast, which was early on in his career, because Cam was in a similar boat as Kyler, right? Number 1 overall pick, Heisman Trophy winner. Comes in, is kind of this different archetype of quarterback, right? He didn't really have like a pro comparison. I remember skipping school to watch the NFL Combine when Cam was throwing, and I remember they would flash up his pro comparisons, and they didn't have one, and they kept putting up Tim Tebow because they were literally saying Cam has no comparison. We've never seen a quarterback like Cam Newton before, so we're just gonna put up Tim Tebow because he's like the closest thing to it. But anyway, Cam had success early on in his career, right? Rookie of the year. You kind of felt like he was a superstar player at such a young age. He was a household name player. Fans looked up to him. Kids wanted to play like Cam. And Kyler, again, similar type of start to his career, right? The multiple the rookie of the year, the multiple Pro Bowls, made it to the playoffs early in his career. But Cam was labeled early on as someone who he doesn't have that Tom Brady work ethic. He's not really a great leader. He's maybe about himself. Is he too cocky? Is he too confident? Super Cam, everything that comes with Cam. But Cam talked about how 3-4 years into his career, he would be showing up to the facility. Early in the morning, he would try to be the first one there, but he never was. There was one guy that always beat him to the stadium first, and it was Derek Anderson. Cam said early on in his career, he never could figure out who it was, who was beating Cam Newton to the stadium. And when he found out it was Derek Anderson, it was funny. Cam mentioned that he would always see Derek in the middle of his routine with a Starbucks cup, alluding to the fact that not only was Derek just beating Cam Newton to the door, right, scanning his key card to literally walk into the facility first. No, he was actually stopping to get coffee at Starbucks, then going to the facility and still beating Cam Newton there. And what's really cool is Cam talked about how just that alone put a chip on his shoulder. It lit a fire under him. Like, I'm the leader of this team. I'm doing my best to get here first, and I'm letting Derek Anderson, someone who we all know is not going to be playing because I'm here, he's beating me here. He's not playing. He's a backup. Why is he taking it, from an optic standpoint, more seriously than I am? I'm going to beat him to the stadium from now on. And he almost like made it a mission. And Cam like took it upon himself to kind of step in and grow into that leader role. And why do I bring it up? Because we have to ask the question. And even too, if we really want to bring up like another example, you can talk about like Baker not really being this great quote unquote leader in Cleveland. Yeah, he was more of a rah-rah guy, but when things got tough, when there was a loss, like he would, point the finger. He would blame an injury. He would be short with the media. When things are going well, cool. He was cocky and would give cool answers and stuff like that. But when they would lose, it was like a different side of Baker. But now with Tampa, you kind of feel like he's more battle tested. He's more refined, more polished, and you just feel like he's matured. And with Kyler Murray, I just sit back and wonder, in, again, the ever-changing landscape of the NFL and players, specifically quarterbacks, stocks rising and falling, could Kyler Murray, someone who's a number one overall pick, a Heisman Trophy winner, someone who's won a lot back in high school and college, with Arizona essentially just kicking him to the curb, could that maybe put a chip on his shoulder? Could that maybe awaken something in Kyler to look at himself in the mirror and say, hey, you know what, maybe I should take it upon myself to be a better leader? I mean, he came into the league at 22 years old. He's 28 now. From the Cardinals fans that I've talked to, they've all pretty much said the same thing, which was when Cliff was there, he would enable Kyler to basically do whatever he wanted because he was the number one overall pick. And like, there was just so much hype and so much, excitement surrounding Kyler, his play style and everything. I was just so different than everybody else's in the National Football League. And Cliff would coming in from college didn't really have that like totally NFL professional approach. It was just kind of like, Kyler's Kyler. He's going to do him, he's going to do his thing. But I guess when Gannon came in, again, according to these fans, supposedly the leadership and the maturity rose, and he started to hold himself a little bit more accountable than he did in the early days of his career, right? At 22 and 23 years old, at 27-ish, 28-ish. Again, according to Cardinals fans, Kyler acts and has matured. Now, to what extent, I don't know. Who knows? And, if you want to be completely fair, you can say, okay, well, if Kyler has been playing video games this whole time, if he's not been rallying the guys, if players don't want to play for him and he's not a leader, he's still actually giving you the production. So in the end, what does it matter? But I do find that problematic because the Jets have lost a lot of games. We all know what this record is and what the playoff drought looks like. There's no need to jump back into it. No need to rehash it. I think leadership is very important when things go south. Can you actually handle what's happening around you? Can you right the ship? Can you weather the storm? Or are you adding to it? Are you running to social media to tweet and defend your individual performance, to tweet out your highlights, to tweet out that it's not your fault that your team is losing? And I'm not insinuating that Kyler has done that before in the past, but just simply being a Jet fan, we've seen multiple Jets do that this year, last year, and the season before that. I think it's just a mentality shift that's got to take place within this locker room. And is a quote unquote bad leader someone to shift the team out of that mentality? I would argue no. But the question is, could someone change? Could Kyler maybe feel disrespected, feel like he has a chip on his shoulder, and want to go out and maybe have that Cam Newton moment, maybe want to go out and prove people wrong? Because, I mean, let's be honest, he probably has seen people criticize his leadership and whatnot. The guy's not living under a rock here. So can he turn into a great leader? I don't know. I have no idea. I don't know him personally. But I don't want to say, no, it's impossible, because we've literally seen players have a career change or a career mental flip. And then all of a sudden they start becoming that guy as they get older, as they become more matured, as they grow into their role in the NFL. And also, too, you're not going to, I don't care who you are, Father Time's going to win eventually. You're not going to be a quarterback for 50 years in the NFL making big contract after big contract. At some point, I think players realize this about like this age, like 28, 29, 30, 31, 32. People start to realize like, hey, time is finite here, and I really have to make the most of it. So that's my simple question that I wanted to pose. Is it possible for Kyler to maybe get better as a leader? Or is it flat out impossible? He's incapable of growing emotionally. He's incapable of growing mentally. And this is just who he is from now until the end of time. I would like to think that the first option is more probable. And then the last big pushback with Kyler is that he's too small. He's too small to play the position. And really, I think it just comes down to accepting the fact that his size is what his size is. And if you prefer the 6'5" Josh Allen type of quarterback, the Ben Roethlisberger, the Cam Newton, that's your preference. And that's totally fine. General managers, head coaches, offensive coordinators, quarterback, everyone has their own preference. Some people prefer a shorter, shiftier quarterback that can extend plays and create if nothing's there, or create when you don't have a lot of receivers that can separate, or an offensive line that has leaks all over the place. I mean, that's Cliff Kingsbury, right? He wants that quarterback that can elude defenders, that can pick up yards upfield, and that can just simply run his system effectively. I think there's a reason why he wanted to stay in Washington. There's a reason why he picked the Arizona Cardinals head coaching job over the Jets with Sam Darnold going into year 2. If we think back, Darnold closed his rookie year really, really nicely. You know, that game against Green Bay, the Texans game, like there were some awesome Darnold moments. You kind of felt like Darnold was trending up. After a rocky start to his rookie season, Cliff said, no, I'm going to the Cardinals. And I'm going to move off of Rosen after one season because he's not my type of quarterback. I'm going after Kyler, the 5'9", 5'10" QB that nobody's really seen before, just because this is my type. So I think it's pretty obvious that Kyler's archetype of quarterback is not super popular. But short quarterbacks can win. But that's not really the point on why I bring it up. The main maybe devil's advocate type of argument that I would present is Kyler's been this size his entire career. And the numbers speak for them. It's not like he was 6'5" and now he's shrunk. You know, he's been able to put up the 2-to-1 TD to INT ratio. He's been able to complete passes at a pretty high completion percentage throughout his entire career. Again, he hasn't had that one terrible season or one amazing season that's like skewing stats. No, it's pretty consistent across the board if he plays. Now, you can argue, okay, well, Kyler, he could get hurt. He's been hurt before in the past. I think the reality is anybody, we can make that argument for anybody, right? Lamar Jackson gets traded to the Jets. Well, he could get hurt. MetLife turf, running quarterback. Joe Burrow gets traded to the Jets. Okay, well, he's had multiple season-ending injuries. He's had lower body issues. He's had the season-ending wrist injury. He could get hurt. We saw Rodgers get hurt. We saw Darnold get hurt. We saw Zach get hurt. We saw McCown get hurt. We saw Sanchez get hurt. Getting hurt, it's just... look, this is tackle football. Getting hurt can happen to anybody. So, to me, the argument that separates, I prefer signing Russ to Kyler because I think Kyler can get hurt more easily. To me, it doesn't carry enough weight. I prefer 35-year-old Jimmy G or Joe Flacco or Gardner Minshew, who's currently hurt, right? Or Daniel Jones, who's currently hurt, or Kenny Pickett over Kyler, because I fear that Kyler has a bigger injury risk. If I'm the Jets, I'm not scared of the gamble with the injuries. Glenn needs to win games. If we win 3 games next season, Glenn is not surviving the head coaching. He's not making it to year 3. He's not doing it. And so to kind of wrap it up, If Murray is cut, the Jets could literally sign and pay 0 draft picks for a top 20 quarterback who, if healthy, we know who he is. And from that point, we can hit the draft with no pressure. Oh my, do we have to take a Ty Simpson at 3? Do we have to hope that he falls to the Colts pick? Are we begging and crossing our fingers that Dante Moore declares and makes it to 3? Or do we have to trade up with the Giants that one spot if we do land at 3? If we don't get the second overall pick, which is still realistic, by the way. But even if we get a Dante Moore, he's going to be 20, 21 as a starting rookie with limited college experience. Is that really the best plan of attack, to just throw him into the fire early and just say, save our jobs, please? If the Jets decide to sign Kyler Murray with paying 0 draft picks in the process, and you can essentially say we are hitting the 2026 draft class, 4 picks, I would say in the top 50, 4 starters, not even including day 3 guys. Round 4, not even including those guys. Not going to include potential trades. Not going to include free agents. Wan'Dale Robinson, Devin Lloyd, some safeties, some defensive. Like, there's a lot of free agents that make sense for this Jets team. A lot of them. A lot of guys that you can argue. Let's not even talk about them. Let's simply just go from Brady Cook, Justin Fields, Tyrod Taylor, to Kyler Murray, and add 4 starters in the draft. I think just those moves alone would bolster this team up very, very nicely and would give us a much, much better chance to win on Sundays next season compared to this year. And here's the beauty of it all too. Darren Muji, because this guy went out and acquired 2027 draft capital as well as 2026, he didn't put all of his eggs in one basket. Because he went out and added draft capital in 2027, if Kyler Murray is unplayable, if he just sucks flat out, if he's that much of a bad leader to where he has lost the locker room in one season and players absolutely hate him, or he has an Aaron Rodgers Achilles tear or a Mark Sanchez preseason season-ending injury, okay, will we have taken this entire draft and built the team up? I'm going to assume, have signed at least a couple of free agents. God, I hope we do. We're going to have some more younger players with day 3, but it is what it is with that. I don't want to put too much stock into that right now. And then in 2027, again, assuming Kyler Murray was just a complete disaster, well, we have 3 first-round picks to make it happen in the quote-unquote better quarterback class next season. Darian Mensah, Sam Levitt, Arch Manning, Julian Sorsby, all these guys, Josh Hoover, Lenore Sellers. There's a lot of names here that we can kind of dive into and talk about. What happens if Dante does go back to school? What happens if Ty Simpson goes back to... there's a lot of possibilities. So I'm taking Kyler Murray over Jimmy G and Kenny Pickett and Minshew and Russ and Flacco every day of the week. Every day of the week. Now, Malik Willis is interesting because Malik you feel like his stock is at an all-time high and Kyler's stock is at an all-time low. But I think right now, if you're the Jets, you need solid answers. You can't, one thing I just don't like about the Jets, I feel like we're in this mode every year, is question marks, haziness. The situation's not clear. A player can do really, really well, or he can not do well, right? He could bottom out. The projection of a player is boom or bust. I wish we had more players on this team where it was just, we know who they are. They're a consistent starter, and we can project pretty easily on how this guy's going to perform in every season. Not these boom or bust, everything has to be perfect around them, or they can explode in one game and then they're quiet for 5 games and it's just this hit or miss, this boom or bust, high ceiling, low floor. Someone can have a great month and then bottom out. We never hear from them. It's just, it feels too scattered, too all over the place. I think Membu can be one of those players for us. I think Tippmann can be one of those players for us if he sticks at guard. If he moves back to center, which is obviously unlikely with Josh Myers coming back, but when he was a center, you can argue the snaps were inconsistent. Olu is a consistent player. Garrett, obviously, we know what he brings to the table. But, there's a lot of holes. There's a lot of talent. There's a lot of depth deficiencies here. And there's also a lot of, even with some of the household names, the Will McDonalds, the Jermaine Johnsons, the Braylon Allens, the Isaiah Davises of the world, do we really know what these guys are going to be doing next season? Like Jermaine Johnson, like if I said Jermaine, like if I traveled into the future and came back and said Jermaine Johnson at 12 sacks next year, that's believable, right? He looks great off second year off the Achilles. But if I did the same thing and I said, well, he has a repeat of this season and he only has 3 sacks, only had 4 sacks, didn't really affect the pocket, that's also pretty believable. I wish we just had some more clarity on the roster as a whole. And again, the number one way to build up your roster as efficiently as possible without getting into crazy free agent dollars and dead money and whatnot is through the draft. It's through the draft. Building up these teams, filling the holes, adding depth, getting system fits, getting guys that really buy into what you're preaching as an organization. So let me know your thoughts down below in the comment section. I know this is a longer video here. And again, I know Kyler's not for everybody. Kyler's not a top 10 quarterback. I'm not saying Kyler's a top 10 quarterback. I'm not saying he would be the Jets franchise quarterback for the next 10 years or something like that, or even 5 years. But what I am saying is, out of the available options, if the Jets want to maybe build the team up a little bit and not feel so pressured into reaching on a quarterback if one is there that they like but they don't love, or maybe the guy that they love goes back to school, Murray gives you a talented, playable option that across the board you feel like you know what you're going to get from, right? He's going to complete the ball. He's going to play high efficient football. He's not going to be a top 5 guy. He's not going to be a top 10 guy probably, but he will keep you in games. He could potentially win you a game. He could extend plays. He could pick up yards on the ground. Now, real quick, last final closing point here, last concern with Kyler Murray. I don't really necessarily think it's a fair critique on Kyler. It's more so a critique of the Jets organization, because you can make this argument for anybody. Dante Moore, Ty Simpson, Jimmy G, Joe Flacco, whoever, Malik Willis, trading for Lamar Jackson. Will the Jets actually build a system around them? Do they know how to do that? Are they capable of coaching the quarterback position efficiently? Justin Fields did not look good this season. Tyrod Taylor did not look good this season. Brady Cook did not look good this season. There's rumors that the Jets are going to be adding offensive names or offensive coaches to the staff. I think that's a very, very good idea. I would like for the Jets to do that. I think we all agree that that should be in play for the team this offseason. But as of right now, we don't know. If the Jets go out and hire a former head coach or a veteran mind or a former offensive coordinator or somebody like that, are we still 100% guaranteed that the Jets are going to be putting the best possible system that you could put around a player out there? And again, it's not really a critique against Kyler, because if the Jets draft Dante Moore at 2 or 3, I think as a fan base, we would still say, like, are they capable enough to build this system around more in a skill set? Or is it going to just be more of the same that we've seen? So anyway, let me know your thoughts down below in the comment section. Thanks so much for watching. By the way, if you don't like Kyler Murray, if you don't want Kyler Murray, that's completely cool. I totally get it. I totally understand if you're not really into it. I just wanted to share my thoughts on why I think it could, potentially make sense, especially as a bridge option, 1 to 2 years. So thanks so much for watching. I appreciate it. And as always, go Jets.